at the beginning of the year, I had you set up a server environment, WAMP or something, right? So I've started mine up, and so all I need to do to go there is type in localhost. Okay? And so what we want to start to do now is we want to, we're going to get into PHP today a little bit. Okay? And then next week we're going to bounce back probably to Java because there's, to Ajax because there's an intersection there. But for now we're going to start with PHP and we'll come back. Okay? So let's go, so remember this is served from a specific directory, this directory on my hard drive, right? It may be different on your computer. Whatever, you can set that, okay? In your web server config files, you have to go in and you can change the web folder, okay? But that's, you guys can Google how to do that. It's outside the scope of this course. So let's create a new folder. We'll call this demo. Do I already have a file? Nope. We'll call it PHP demo. How about, what's this, 229? Demo. Yay! Oh, I already had one of those too. Holy crap. Comp 229 demo. Okay. Oops. Whoa, it's not supposed to happen. So nothing there. So we're going to go here. And, nope, not there. Back here. And we're going to create our first, so we'll, no, not a folder. What? Is my computer going crazy or is it me? Videos? How did I get to videos? Jeez Louise. What's this one? Okay. Delete. New file. Okay, so we'll start with index.html just to make sure that everything's all good. Okay. There we go. So we're good. Our server's working. So the first thing we're going to do that's different, especially if we're using PHP, okay, is we need to, our files now, instead of HTML, will be called .php. Okay, if we want to run PHP script. Okay, and if you're using ASP, it would have to be called ASP. Okay, so now let's try it. I'm not sure that's even going to. Okay, it worked. Okay, so no, we don't want this. It's a new file name. Okay, so the first thing we have to do, now we could just have a regular HTML page here. Okay, works fine. Now what we can do now that's different, because we're hosting from a server that supports PHP, has PHP installed. Now what we can do is we can embed PHP scripts into our HTML file, just like we were, in a way, just like we were embedding JavaScript scripts. Okay. The difference is PHP scripts is run on the server. JavaScript is run on your client's machine, on your browser. Okay. So what we can do, the way we tell the computer, okay, or the software, we want to have PHP code now, is we do this. We do triangle bracket, question mark, PHP. That's so we're starting PHP and we're ending PHP with question mark, triangle bracket. Okay? So anything in here, this is PHP code. Okay? And these /*/ comment. Same with this is also a comment. Okay? It works. Now we're into a real language now that's going to probably look a little more familiar than you're used to. Okay, so what can we do with PHP? So usually what we do is we we can do a lot of processing, but eventually we need to get that data out to the file, right? We want to serve it. So what we do is we use the function echo, okay? And that's sort of like print in C, right? Or system.out in Java, right? So we can just say hello world, okay? No big deal, right? Pretty simple. But now with PHP, we have the power of a full programming language. So we could do stuff like this. We could do a loop, while we could do a variable. So variables in PHP start with a $sign. So we could say $counter equals 0, and we'll say while counter is less than 10, echo hello world, and counter plus plus. Oops, unexpected. Line 15. Oop. Line 17. Oh, okay, it doesn't like that. Oh. There we go. Okay. Cool. And we can do that in another way. For counter, or for I equals 0, while I is less than 10, I plus plus. Okay. So we have loops. Okay. We have ifs. If, so let's say condition, and we can make that true, right? True is a reserved keyword. So we can say if condition, okay, and then we can copy this in here. And remember, tab your code. So if condition, it will run. And let's do this. We'll put a line break at the end of hello world so that we get everything on new lines. Okay, and now, of course, if I change this to false, no more. Okay. Okay, actually, let me just upload the notes for you on. Okay. Okay. Where did that go? Oh. Okay. So that's up there for you. I'm just going to pull that down so I can review here and see what I've covered. What we have yet to cover. Okay. So we looked at comments. Okay, there are 6 data types. There's integer, double, boolean, string, array. Okay, so we'll look at how to define an array in a second. And so variables work pretty much like in any other language. We can do arithmetic, obviously, so we can say number 1 equals 10 and number 2 equals 15, and then we could do all sorts of things. We could say number 3 equals number 1 times number 2, echo number 3. Okay, all sorts. Division. Okay. What about mod? You guys know what does mod do? If I have percentage, what does it return? Remainder, exactly. Okay. So not much different than what you're used to. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, we looked at conditional expressions. So what's the difference between 1 equal sign and 2 equal sign? So if there's an equal sign here, but I could also say this. I could say if number 1 equals number 2, then echo they equal. What's the diff? Why would I use 2 in one case and 1 in another?
Because in that case it is equal, but in this case it is not mandatory that it is equal. It can be equal or it cannot be equal.
Almost. 1 equal sign, it means assignment. Exactly. You're taking a value and sticking it in something else. 2 is comparison. You're saying, does this equal another thing? Okay? Okay. It's easy to get confused. Just last year, I was working on some stupid bug in Flash for hours. I was pounding my fist, pounding. Why isn't this working? 1 equal sign in an if statement. And it was Flash, so it wasn't complaining, and it would just assign it. So be careful, okay? So, okay, let's look at if statements. What would be the difference if I said here, number, so if number, or I said if number 1 is greater than equal to number 2, then echo something like greater. What's the difference between if I do this and if I do this? What's the difference between those? So what's the difference between this and this? Right here.
First part, both the condition has checked, but the second part, if the first condition is true, then it goes. If the first condition is true, that is not going down with the second condition.
Exactly. So this kind of forms a block when you have if, else if. So just to reiterate what you said, so in here, because it's if, it checks each condition. So if this is true, this could also be true. And so if they were both true, it would do both. In this case, if you have else if, only the first true one is accepted, and then everything else is just skipped. Okay? Again, real easy to forget that, and then be spending hours and thinking, oh, why isn't this working? And it's because you probably thought you were doing this, but you were doing this. Okay? So remember that. Okay? So we looked at while and for loops in PHP. Not much different than what you've seen. Okay, so let's let's see how. So let's just comment this out. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll put this at the top of the page. Okay, like this. So what we can do the idea with PHP is that you're going to intermix your HTML and PHP, and basically wherever your site is dynamic, you're going to have a PHP file, a PHP section. Okay, so let's say in your body you have a header. Okay, and in this header, eventually you're going to make a login system, so that people have to log in. So what, normally you might say welcome user. That's boring. We want to say welcome who's ever on the site. Okay, so how can we do that? So what we do now is we're going to mix in, we're going to insert a little bit of PHP code. into our HTML. Okay, so instead of user, we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to stick in some PHP here, like this. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to echo name. Okay, so if we do that now, it's going to say undefined variable. Okay, so let's go up here and we'll do that. Okay, so now here we go. Okay, so I have set the value here and displayed it here. Okay, now our page is almost dynamic. Almost. Okay, so what this will eventually become is we won't start this until after the midterm. But this code now, instead of just hard coding a name in, what this code will do is it will go to the database and retrieve some information and stick it in the variable there, and it will be dynamic. So if you log in, you type in your username and password, you log in, and then the server will send back and say, okay, this user is Carmen, and we'll set the value of that variable, not with a string literal, but with a call to a database. Okay?
Like a session variable?
A session, yes, it could be a session variable. A session, we'll get into sessions after the midterm. Yeah, so sessions, what sessions allow you to do is maintain variable states between pages. So if you go from one page to a next, you can, it's like saving variables, okay? So we'll get into sessions after the midterm. We'll talk about PHP and MySQL, and we'll get into sessions, okay? Okay. So let's see. We have 25 minutes. I don't want to overwhelm you guys too much. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start to examine. So remember, we started with a couple weeks ago. We looked at forms. Okay, and I said that forms without server-side technology is it's nothing. It's useless. Okay, so because the idea of a form is that you collect information from the user and then you pass it up to a script that will then do something with that information. Okay, so let's go back to our old example here. Where's our old? I think I have it in here. Where is it? Okay, here's our form. We're just going to copy it, because you guys know about forms, right? So we're going to go back here, and we're going to paste our form here. Okay? Okay, here's our form. So what we need to do now is we need to so one, we need to change this back from a type button to a submit. So what that'll do is that will now submit the folder, which means send it up to the script, to a script. Okay, that's different. A regular button is just a generic thing that we can attach any action to. But so a submit type of button already has an action tied to it. Okay, so let's try it now. So if we refresh, it'll submit. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to do a couple of things to our form. So one is we need to tell it what file is going to have our script that will process the form. Okay? So we need, in this case, we'll call it form.php. And we haven't created that file, but we will in a second. Okay? The second thing is that there's two ways that a form can transmit information. Okay? So one is called get and one is called post. Okay? So if you use get, the information is sent in the URL. Okay? So if you ever go to, sometimes if you go to a site that uses get, you'll notice the URL has a bunch of crazy looking stuff at the end, right? So it'd be question mark and then something equals something, and then I guess it's yeah, exactly. So those are name value pairs. Okay? So username equals something. What's a possible problem with doing it that way? Why wouldn't you? When wouldn't you want to do that? Security, right? Would you want to send a password through get? No. So the other one is called post. Okay? What's maybe a disadvantage of post? Well, if it's, let's say, sometimes I develop a website where all the pages are contained in one file, and they're just PHP files, right? So let's say I would say index.php, and then I would say page equals 2, and then in my index I would say if page equals 2, display this. Okay? I want to do that with get, because if I don't, you won't be able to bookmark those pages, right? You will just bookmark a generic URL, and when you go back to it, it won't remember those post variables. So if you're just sending navigation information, maybe get is a good way to go. Okay, so there's always situations where you want to use something and not something else. Okay, so in this case, we're going to use post. Okay. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do now is we need to then develop our PHP form. Okay, so let's save that, and let's go here. No. Here. And so now we're going to create a new PHP file called form.php. Okay. And we're going to go in here. We're going to edit it. Okay. So the first thing that we do is, so now I think we should be able to do this. Echo test. Oh wait, no. First we need to do PHP. Okay. So we're just going to accept the data and then not do anything with it. Okay, let's try it. Okay. So see how the submit button is kind of like a link. So, and see, look, there's nothing up here. Now let's go back. Let's change this to get. Okay. And we'll refresh. Okay. See that? So that's bad. We don't want that. Okay? Big security problem. Yep. So,
So it's used for the hacking purposes.
not really. Let me see. Like, so for example, if you're sending it just for navigation purposes, so you might want to say, so if we go here, so instead of username, this might be page, and this might be 1, right? And then what we could do then is we could bookmark that, so that when I come back there, it'll automatically display that. Okay? But for the most part, you'll probably be using post, especially for anything secure. Post.
Like Facebook and Gmail also have post.
Yes. Yeah. Okay? So let's change this back to post. Okay? And we'll refresh. So now what we can do is we'll go into our form. So remember when those form values are now pushed into our new file, and they're like, think of them as global variables now. They're accessible all throughout this file. So the way we access it is we use this $_ and then we refer to this associative array, and then we can so what did we call it? We called it username. So now we'll say username. Sorry, and I missed a part here. We need post. Okay, and what we can do is we'll say $username equals post, and now we will echo username. Okay. So see how now we've transferred information from one page to another. Okay? And so now let's do this. Let's make a little so let's make a very, very, very extremely rudimentary login system that you guys should never ever do, but I'm just showing you for demo. So you could say if username equals Carmen, or username equals Bob, or these are bars are ors, right? What's and? How do I do and?
Both conditions to be true.
Sorry?
Both conditions to be true, and then the output.
No, I know, but how would I put and here? What's the symbols for and? Yeah, ampersand. Whoops. Where the hell is ampersand? Here. Okay. Okay, and or equals Bob, or equals Joe. Okay. Else, okay, echo you cannot access this system. Okay? And then echo here, we'll say echo welcome. And in PHP, the way, does anyone know what symbol we use to concatenate strings? No, that's JavaScript. Good guess, though. It's the dot. So we'd say welcome username. Let's try it. Welcome Bob. How about this? Ooh. Case sensitive. Remember, case sensitive. Okay? Okay. So that's generally how. So now the next step, eventually the next step, what we would be doing is instead of checking a simple, our system has 3 users, right? That's not very good, and it's hard coded. So instead, what we would be doing is we'd be running a query on our database, right? We'd select from our user table, and we would say, select all where username equals username, and then we would compare passwords. Okay, and then if they match, then we would let them in. If not, nope, can't get in. Okay. Okay, let me see what else. Okay. Okay, you know what? I think we're going to end there. We'll end a little bit early today. We didn't really have a break, and I'll give you some time to maybe work on your assignment. Okay, so here's the lab assignment for this week. Okay. So I want you to so we're going to add on to your playing card, your trading card again. Okay. I want you to create a 1-question quiz, okay, on the bottom of your card. 1 question. Okay, that maybe quizzes the user on some information on the, like what is the player's name or something. Okay, and they should have 30 seconds to answer. Otherwise, they can't answer anymore. Okay, and if they answer, it should tell them if they're correct or not. Okay, so you can, your quiz, you could have multiple choice. I didn't really, I didn't look at anything other than text boxes, but it's very similar, right? You can look at the value of a checkbox. It's either checked or unchecked.
Can you use a radio buttons?
A radio button would be better if you used multiple choice, because remember with checkboxes, it's any of them can be selected. Radio buttons, it's only one. Okay, or you could have maybe what is the name of the player, and then they could type it in a text box or something. Okay, they should have 30 seconds to answer from when the page is loaded, and then it should tell them if they're correct. Okay, doable? Yes.
You have to use most timer and just
Exactly. You gotta. That's what this is all about, right? I'm showing you all these technologies sort of in isolation, and it's your guys' job to say, okay, and now you have to start combining them together into real applications. Okay. Okay. So I'll write that up on eCentennial.